it was always so much fun, and I never knew what to expect working with Matt, and like just the moments we would have that were spontaneous. I couldn't single out one of them, but I think Nev's right. Just the energy of everybody, that sort of crash of youth coming together, and during the shooting, The Craft came out, and it was number 1, and that was, you know, sort of gave us another energy. But I think shooting that kitchen scene was so difficult, but at the same time so freeing in a way, and I remember that mostly, and mostly I remember like reactions Matt would have to certain things that would happen, and how it would drive things even further. But yeah, no one particular moment necessarily, just the whole energy of it all.
I think that you hit me with a phone ding.
Yeah, that was...
Like that's a moment that, by the way, is anyone else here bagpiper? Am I stroking out right now? Where's bagpiper?
It's definitely bagpipes.
I was having a stroke. I think that moment
yeah, that was in my mind when I was bringing that up, because it was, you know, it was one of those things where the corn syrup is so sticky, or whatever it is they actually use, and I, you know, I was supposed to throw the phone, but not necessarily at him. And it just, the stickiness of it all led to this.
Hitting me in the head. Sorry, man. But those moments, like, those come out of that energy and out of kind of the freedom that was set up. And for me, that would be my answer.
And there was so much that got cut out of that scene that you know, was much more intense. These stabbings continued on and on and on. Of us cutting.
We were actually in NC-17 when it first came out. So when we first released it to the ratings board, it was an NC-17. And they had to cut 2 pieces out of that. The first one was the guts. So the boy in the beginning, God bless his soul, who dies with Drew, his guts slide from his stomach out and fall on the floor. And the ratings board's like, you can't have guts succumb to gravity. and then what?
And they couldn't smoke. If there was steam coming off the guts, that changed the rating.
Yeah.
There could not be steam coming off the guts.
And
Very
then,
strange. I don't know how people make these decisions, but...
And blood. We had to cut the blood sound effects of blood dripping from the boys. That's a weird choice. Good question, though. Yeah. Hi.
So Matt, we've got about 5 more minutes to get through the rest of the line, so you got about 5.
Oh, God, okay, go fast.
All right, well, I wanted to ask a question to all 3 of you about sort of your take on the entity that is Ghostface, because he's different than other slashers in which like no 1 or 2 guys play him. Like it's like 30 different people involved in the production of him, because you got like stuntmen and the voice, and then you guys playing the true identity. So did you ever assign any particular part of your characters to any one thing that happened in the first movie, and then, you know, how was the identity treated as the series progressed and secrecy became more and more of an issue as the films got more popular?
Secrecy was definitely a big issue even going into the second, because as soon as pages started getting written and shared amongst Wes and Kevin, things were getting on the internet. So I remember that there was a big like red line between through every single page of every script, so that they couldn't actually be printed and shared. And then they did also start releasing fake sides and fake scenes to throw people off on the internet. So secrecy was a very big deal. You're not going to enjoy these movies if you know what's going to happen, obviously. You're not going to enjoy them if you know who Ghostface is going to be in the end. So, I mean, to the point where on the 3rd and 4th, we did not, I knew, but not everyone, not many of the cast actually knew who the killer was going to be at the end. So yeah, there was a lot of secrecy, but I'm glad they did that because it made it more fun for everybody.
We never really went through and sort of said, oh, was that you killing Rose? But yeah, you know, I think we just played what we had to play, and that was part of the plot. I remember doing, right after I got the movie, I was doing an interview for a magazine, and and I was young, and I couldn't even believe somebody was interviewing me, and they were, oh, what are you doing next? And I was like, oh, I'm playing this killer in this movie, and it hit me. I was like, after we hung up, I was like, oh shit. And so I called my publicist right away, and I was like, you got to get a hold of them. You got to make sure that, sure enough, they made sure they kept it secret. But I was so excited to be playing that part. I would have given it to everybody.
My question's for you. Were you shocked? Were you like confused when you got cast as Shaggy after you played a serial killer?
Aren't they one and the same?
Like, dude.
We'll talk later.
No, I feel like my gift as an actor is I can do anything. I just wish they'd let me do more. Do you know what I mean? I can do. I feel like I can do a lot, and so for me now, I was like, you got it. I can do that. But thank you for the question. You're welcome. Zoinks. Like, man. You want to touch Skeet? There you go, bro.
I feel the same way only about SLC Punk, the way that Little Red Riding Hood did. Right? You've been working for a while when you got to SLC Punk, what you said earlier about being an outsider and you finding your thing that you love. I think about the speech where you gave to the parents about Harvard out, University of Utah in. Right? At that point, I mean, were you enough of a professional? Was there any cynicism or jadism coming in, or were you still like feeling that way? Because what Steve-O did throughout that whole thing, I mean, to this day, I break it out at least like quarterly. It's in regular rotation for me on Spotify and stuff like that. Like, that's such a huge thing for me. And I mean, do you still carry that with you, or have you gotten to the point now where you're inside?
I am more in love with being an artist now than I've ever been in my life. But that has nothing to do with being a celebrity or being in this moment or successful. That is everything about being an artist. So I feel like the idea of doing SLC Punk that was the single greatest gift for me as an actor I've ever had.
And for me as a fan.
Thank you. But I don't get to do that very often. The reality is that I'm not a number one on the call sheet very often. So it's tough. If you're number 4 or 5 on the call sheet, you have less lines and less to do and less kind of responsibility for the success or failure of a film. So to alleviate that, I do a lot of other things. I directed a movie called Fat Kid Rules the World, which is an opportunity for me to continue to do other things to stay alive as an artist. But I don't get that opportunity very often. But thank you. I'll say right now is that if I walk down the street and 10 people walk up to me, 8 people will come up and say SLC Punk changed my life. So thank you very much.
Okay, Matt. We've got time for one more question. There's a young man at the back. Let's get the young man's question. There's a young man at the back there. There's a young man at the back. Let's get his question.
Hi, little man.
This is the last question, unfortunately.
This question is for all 3 of you. What are your favorite scary movies?
My favorite scary movie is The Changeling with George C. Scott. It's a terrifying film. It was the first one I ever saw when I was 13 years old, and the reason I have a lot of trouble watching horror movies, but I think it's brilliant.
Mine's Forrest Gump.
I think my favorite scary movie is probably The Exorcist. You have to see that for a long time. That's it, right?
That's it, yeah. Guys, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you
today.
so much. I really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure.
This show, Neve Campbell, Skeet Ulrich.